Hey everybody, it's Maurice from Los Angeles, and the question this week is, do I still practice, and what do I practice when I do? And the simple answer is yes, I still practice. Right now I'm very scatterbrained about what I practice. I'm sort of into a couple books that my friend and actually fellow panelist Dave Keefe has written, and it's all about bass neck fundamentals, and it's such a very well laid out book, and I'm spending a lot of time with that. I have a deep appreciation for a couple bassists out there, and I'm digging into two of them right now. Michelle Indigay-Cello, I've kind of revisited a lot. I love her stuff, and I had spent a little bit of time digging into this Joe Dart bass line stuff that's coming from his projects, and that's what I've been doing over the quarantine. But getting better at reading, getting better at walking, and styles and things that I'm not working in a whole lot is where I want to put my practice time. I've been working around with some odd meter grooves as well, just to find the comfort in that, and also being able to play inside that meter. So that's what I'm doing lately. Finding time is probably the biggest challenge, but if you really want to do it, there are things you can sacrifice, TV time or party time or something like that. It's I get more out of practicing than the other two. So that's my choice, what I do with my free time, and I'm very interested in hearing what the other guys have to say. Talking to other bass players, man, that can really, really can set you in a direction, that keeps you busy for a while. And I'm definitely going to listen up to my colleagues on this one. So, Dale, really good question, and we will look forward to this video coming out and also seeing you guys next week. So take care and stay well and be groovy. Take care. Bye.
Everybody, Roy Vogt coming to you from my music room and home studio just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. What am I practicing on right now? Well, that's a loaded question because I teach somewhere in the neighborhood of around 40 hours a week of various students, so there's a lot of time I have bass in hand. And so if a student's working on a particularly challenging thing, then, I'll work on it too so that I can demonstrate it well. I have a particular task right now, and a lot of my time right now, I've played electric bass for a very long time, but a lot of my time right now is spent on practicing on upright with bow work and also pizzicato work. And right now I have I think this is the Suite for Flute and Piano by Claude, which is basically a contemporary work that is that Jean-Pierre Rampal and Claude Bolling had put together, and the principal accompaniment is a jazz trio. So I have a bass part that I have to learn with that. Interestingly enough, for my friend Bob Marler, who's a classical pianist, he said the bass part's quite easy, and I looked at it and I was like, well, easy is relative. It's if you're a string bass section member and you're playing till Eulenspiegel or Richard Strauss, yeah, it's easy. If you're an upright bass player who doesn't do that sort of thing, there's some stuff I've got to practice. There's some 16th note runs that are not horrible, but they're challenging. They have a little bit of challenge. There's a lot of ostinato. I don't know if you can see that, but there's these little scalar runs. They're not terrible. But basically what I'm going to do is get with my bow and play them in tune, and then go ahead and go to pizzicato and work on them. So a lot of times now, my practicing is kind of task-oriented. If I have a big project, I'll practice that. Otherwise, a lot of it is just me keeping my skills up by teaching other students, and I do a lot of that, and that works because that way you're always working with your bass in hand and kind of pushing the envelope for them so that you're always keeping your skills up. A lot of my educator friends will probably have the same answer. I'm looking forward to hearing it. All right, thanks. Everybody stay safe.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This week's question is, oh, by the way, I'm Mark Corradetti. I'm from Sarasota, Florida. I'm in my car It's early today. I'm
Continue
going
on
to
University Parkway for 3 miles.
my church. I'm going to do a gig there. This week's question was very interesting, and I know this isn't really safe, but what are you going to do? What do you practice now that you're, I guess a professional or whatever? And the things that I work on mostly, it's very clear to me, is fundamentals. The things that I'm hired for mostly are to keep time and have a great tone and be up on the current, styles and things like that. So a lot of listening. In my focused practice, I work on a lot of rhythms and things, learning to feel things that are a little bit uncomfortable or, I don't know. I guess practice is always stuff that you don't know. I'm a strong proponent of, practice is different than playing. So, I don't really run scales or do speed and things like that. It's mostly listening and fitting in and making other people sound good. Tone, time, and taste. It always comes back to that. But when I'm sitting there practicing, I'll think of a subject and, I'll stay on it for a year or two. And right now I'm really big on time things like, polyrhythms. I don't really get hired to do that kind of stuff, but I just want to be able to feel it. I think feel is the most important thing, and that's something you really, can't practice, but you can internalize a lot of the ingredients that go into such things, so that you don't have to try to figure it out. You can just feel it when the time comes. I guess, preparation, but yeah, mostly just fundamentals and, things like that, so that when, I'm called to play, obviously, there's music to learn while you're, before a gig or something like that. So that's also a thing too. And, breaking it down, just trying to feel it so that it becomes natural, working on things that aren't natural so that they feel natural, because for me it's all about feel. And that's about what I practice. Right now I'm working on 5 against 4 and 4 against 5 and trying to make it feel natural and going back and forth and things like that. But yeah, that's about it right now. So I'm on my way to a gig, so I'll catch you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is lovely to see you all again, even though I can't see you. This week's question, dealing very specifically with practicing and how to keep a regimented practice schedule when you are a full-time professional musician. The advice that I'm going to give is not mine. It is advice that I was given by people much smarter than am I. 2 names that every bass player should be familiar with, which every bass player should be familiar. Victor Wooten and Steve Bailey. Victor has something that he calls concentrated practice. Steve has a term that he coined called deliberate practice. I'll deal with those one at a time. Victor's is very specific in terms of if you have a particular goal, you're wanting to perfectly be able to play a particular song, a particular scale, some type of mode, anything like that. Digging out harmonics and adding them to your playing. You take whatever the subject matter is and you focus straight in on it and demand of yourself that you give your utmost attention to that topic. for Victor, he said when he learned harmonics, the most practice that he has ever done was the night after hearing Portrait of Tracy by Jaco Pastorius. He spent the entire night learning to play Portrait of Tracy and diving deep into whatever it is and investing the time, spending the time. That's the most that you're going to get out of it, is what you put into it. With deliberate practice, Steve mentioned that there's nothing wrong with spending 5-6 hours and just playing along with songs and basically noodling and trying to develop some muscle memory and things like that. There's nothing wrong with it. But when time is of an issue and how much time you have to invest in something is an issue, practicing deliberately, it's just a matter of time management and putting forth effort, the most effort to get the most benefit from it. So with concentrated practicing, devoting time to what your goal is ultimately, and with deliberate practice, methodically and systematically breaking down what you need to learn and doing it in incremental steps, but all focused on the ultimate goal. Now, being a professional musician, when I have to learn new material, I'm a freak with repetition. I will just saturate my mind with the music that I'm learning. I will listen to it so much that many people would just go crazy from listening to the same thing again and again. But it's what I love doing. It's what works for me, is really committing time to it. When I have a lot of material to learn in a short amount of time, again, it's as much repetition as I can get, plus going into it with my eyes and ears as open as they can be for the other musicians, listening for the most subtle clues as to where we're going if I haven't memorized everything perfectly. So that is as much as I'm going to speak this week. I'll eagerly listen to the other panelists on this Q&A and try to learn from these other professional players. I'm honestly getting as much from this experience as I hope that you all are out there, and it certainly is enjoyable. And please stay safe, and I will see you all next week.
You know, this is an interesting question because I remember asking it myself. When I was a student in Musicians Institute, a lot of my teachers were Steve Bailey, Gary Willis, Jeff Berlin. The list goes on and on and on. And I was always curious because, their profession was music and they were always learning set lists and doing sessions and stuff, what they worked on their own. And so I just started asking people. And I remember specifically Paul Farnan, who was the director of BIT at the time, said something really important to me, and it's what I try to do, is if you find yourself in a time crunch, you don't have a lot of time to practice, probably the best single thing he thinks you could do, and I happen to agree with him, is transcription. It encapsulates all your skill sets. So what do I mean by this is find a song that you like. It doesn't have to be a bass part, but say you really like a guitar solo on a track. Sit down and use your ear and transcribe it, write it out, and get the chord progression so you can see what notes are being used against the chord at any given time. So that trains your ear, and because you're writing it out and then subsequently you'll be reading it, that trains your reading. That kind of keeps your reading skills up. Because you're looking at the chords and you're analyzing the note choices against the chords, that is utilizing and developing your harmony and theory. As you sit and try to play along with it, and that's developing your technique. So, right now, because of my my day gig and working everything bass and teaching private lessons and Zoom lessons and things like that. As you can imagine, I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of stuff, but I don't want to stagnate. So that is how I spend a lot of my time when I have a chance to practice. Is I'll find something that fascinates me, some musical performance that really kind of gets me excited, or maybe it's in an area I feel weak in, odd meter or something like that. I'll do a transcription and I'll go through that process. So that's what I work on, and that's been my modus operandi for several years now. Luckily, because I do teach private lessons, that keeps a lot of my fundamental skills up. Because reading music is a perishable skill. If you get away from it on any given time, your skills will diminish. You won't forget how to read, but like your reaction times and your ability to instantly read complex rhythms and things like that will kind of get fuzzy and go away. So I like the fact that because I'm teaching, I'm constantly keeping the foundation of that up. So that's what I'm working on. I'm always very fascinated to hear like what the other bass panelists respond to, because it is a fascinating question. But I remember asking that of a lot of pro players that I was lucky enough to study with, and a lot of them mentioned they do transcriptions and things like that. All right, well, I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. Thank you for sending it in. I'd also just like to remind you, please continue to send in questions. It really helps us here to make sure that we're giving you the information you need the most. Thank you so much and have a great week.